Hey guys, it's Liam the Editor. I just want to let you know that Go Stadium streams live on Twitch, and if you want to see top tier PvP streams, then make sure you follow us over there. We also offer top tier coaching services from top Bellas such as Vela Ash, Gustin Augustine, HouseDark93, and more. You can check this out in the link below. That's enough from me, let's get right into the action.
Bella attended the Ferocious Mega Cup with King in Richmond, Virginia with 149 participants. It is a massive tournament, huge massive tournament. Bella had a very impressive performance, going a total of 7-1 in all of the 8 rounds with 19 wins. And a couple of remarks from Bella are, quote, "First, I would like to thank you, Omar, That Boy Muck, Richmond, #PvP community to host an amazing tournament. A big thanks as well to King, Andrew, and Go Live PvP to promote and stream the tournament. To highlight a few points that Bella made, you will need to get your A9 out first to charm their second to last Pokemon to get energy advantage. A9s with 1 shield. You will need to get your A9 out after their A9 to get HP advantage. And then also another mirror matchup, Bibs with 1 shield, do whatever you can in the Vape versus their second to last Pokemon to make them spend some shielder to get enough energy to do enough damage to their Bib and charm the Bib down without using charge. And I think as we're about to see, specific points like that merely scratch the surface of the mastery in all of these battles. So let's look at their team. Bella did note that they went with kind of a standard meta team. Bella's team is composed of Umbreon, Alolan Ninetales, Vaporeon, Skuntank, Bibarel, and then the Nidoqueen. Now to start getting into these matches, the first opponent for this massive 8-round tournament, casting Bella's performance, is going to be against 3D Casual Toad. And I think Casual Toad also kind of brought a standard meta team. We see Umbreon, Alolan Ninetales, Alolan Sandslash, Minun, Bibarel, and then the Nidoqueen. Round 1, Game 1, Casual Toad versus Bella. We see Casual Toad opt to open up with the A9, and Bella does the same as well. So, as you know, Bella has already noted well ahead of time, and they've studied, they've done a lot of practice, they're familiar with these kind of mirror matchups. And unfortunately, it looks like Bella's IVs might not be so PvP optimal as compared to Casual Toads, but at the same time, the matchup mastery that Bella obviously has, good and ready to go for this kind of scenario, I think is going to be doing a lot of favors. We're kind of at a disadvantage already at this point with the 1 shield versus the 1 shield, and you have to bring out the Vape. They already know what your second Pokemon is. They're going to bring out a tank, which is going to be the Umbreon. Could be very, very threatening against Vaporeon, but we actually opt apparently to go for a mirror. And apparently they do also have, Last Resort, and we have Last Resort as well. So this isn't the most exciting matchup, at least in my opinion, for round 1, game 1. You know, it's pretty standard for the meta to see these kind of mirror matchups. And I think that's what did Bella a lot of favors in this huge 8-round tournament going 7-1, is knowing the matchups very well, like, you know, like the back of your hand with Umbreon versus Umbreon, Bibarel versus Bibarel, the A9 versus the A9. Those are important matchups to know, and I think for the most part that might be what the meta really comes down to in a lot of scenarios and in a lot of battles. But let's just keep going here. We're going to find out, okay? So they have the Bibarel left. We still have the Vaporeon. Unfortunately, the opponent, unfortunately, they don't have any shields left, and Bella's looking good. Bella is looking good, sitting pretty with 1 shield with the Vaporeon versus the Bibarel. Now, it looks like they did successfully get a shield bait with the Surf. That's not going to be such a huge deal at this point, considering how low the Bibarel's HP is, and we're going to get to that Aqua Tail super quick. And that's going to be GG's to the Beeb. It's got to go. It's Dunskies. And we're going to see what comes out next. We're not looking so advantageous as far as what we have in the back, but you know, it's almost done at this point. It's basically GG's. The Umbreon, even if it lands a foul play Last Resort, we're going to be able to get to an Aqua Tail, and if that does not KO, you know, a couple more Water Guns definitely should KO at that point. Yeah, there we go. GG's. GG's game 1. Let's go to game 2. Right now in round 1, game 2 here, we do see Bella opens up with considerably, you know, an advantage. I would consider this winning the lead because, you know, the Alolan Sandslash, if it wants to really stand a hope against the Vaporeon, especially as a lead, it's got to land those bulldozes and do that neutral damage. But it looks like they opt to swap out into their Minun, right? That's why they brought it. But Bella has an answer. Bella knows this matchup. They're pretty familiar with it. I think they're familiar with all the matchups in the meta at this point with what we've already seen in game 1. But they're bringing out the Skunk to not so much, you know, counter or hard counter the Minun, but to kind of use Skunk as a safe switch, which I think he can be in a lot of situations for the Ferocious Cup. Now, they're going to land the Ice Punch. Bella's going to be smart. They're going to opt not to shield. If you want to use your energy, go ahead and use your energy against my Skunk Tank. That's not what I use him for. Even though, it's tank, he's not really a tank. Not in this meta, at least. Now, we're bringing out the Vaporeon again. You saw how quick that was, that Bella responded. The reflex and the timing with that to swap out into the mirror. That was the mastery that I think we're going to see for the rest of this tournament coverage. That was so well timed. I think that instead of Bella losing the advantage with the charm damage taken from the opposing Alolan Ninetales, they're able to mitigate that threat kind of by swapping into their own Alolan Ninetales as quick as possible. Right? That's some PvP head knowledge right there. If I've ever seen some PvP head knowledge. But here we go. We still have the Vaporeon. It's kind of good and healthy, and we're getting off those Aqua Tails, and the Sand Slash is Dunskies. Closing with the Vaporeon. Again, GG's. Let's go to the next game. Now, out of good sportsmanship, it looks like they did opt for a Game 3, even though Bella's already victorious for round 1. And you see how quick, again, the reflex and the timing. You want to avoid that charm damage. They swap into the Skunk as quick as they possibly can. And of course, Casual Toad has to respond at this point, otherwise they're going to completely lose advantage, even though they've already lost their round at this point. Bringing out the Alolan Sand Slash, it's going to pretty much shut down the Poison Jab damage, being part Steel typing, but we're still able to do just massive neutral damage from the Skunk in this matchup. So it's GG's. He lands the Ice Punch. That's going to KO the Skunk. But again, Bella does not shield anything coming into the Skunk. That's not why Bella brought the Skunk. That's not what Bella is using the Skunk for. If you want to use your energy against the Skunk, go ahead and use it. I'm going to save my shields for this neutral damage for the Water Gunner with the Vaporeon. I think Bella has used the Vaporeon very, very well. Well, we saw it basically win this entire round in Game 1 and Game 2. Bring out the Minun. Bella's going to swap pretty quickly, I guess. They got off some damage with the Vaporeon, but they go into the Charmer, right? They bring out the Alolan Ninetales relatively quick. And, of course, the opponent responds by bringing out their own to avoid Bella, apparently, from reaching that Psyshock, which is pretty smart at that point. But Bella still has a considerable advantage. They already have some energy built up on this Vaporeon, so it can get off that Aqua Tail as quick as possible. They are pretty much forced to shield at this point. And it's pretty much GG's, because as soon as the Minun comes out, it's done for. Because this Aqua Tail is going to land, and then if the Aqua Tail doesn't KO, again, just like round 1, then 1 or 2 Water Guns will. GG's. GG's. All right, and in round 2, Bella was matched up against PL232. PL232 also had kind of a standard team composition for the Ferocious Cup. I think they had one particular pick that seemed more interesting to me, I guess, which was the Kanto Sand Slash. Round 2, game 1. What are we going to see as far as leads here? Oof, that is not what that is not a lead scenario you want to lose. That's not what you want to see from the opposing team. Hands down, they lost that lead. They swap out to the Skunk, which is pretty quick. But Bella, again, with the quick reflexes, brings out this Vaporeon to be essentially, a spam gate. Let's say spam gate, kind of a spam gate to the neutral Skunk threat against the Ferocious meta. So the Vaporeon considerably in this situation was a safe switch, but also kind of a counter to the Skunk. Now, okay, I kind of anticipated this. This is interesting. We see a play from Bella where they are willing to lose the shield advantage at this point in order to gain this matchup. I mean, they're pretty confident they can win between the water gun damage and the spamminess of Aqua Tail, which I guess, that's just another demonstration they bring so far in this tournament for matchup mastery, knowing those little things, right? That PvP head knowledge is real. Interesting here, they actually opt to go for the Last Resort against the Umbreon. They kind of sacrificed the stab from Aqua Tail, but I think Last Resort as a one-hit might actually just deal more damage in that scenario, unless you're able, if you have more energy and you're able to go for the double Aqua Tail, that'd be preferable, but that's not the position that we were in at this point. Now, Bella, okay, so they bring out the Beaverell. Bella is going for the double water threat and the double water strategy here up against the A9 threat, which, it's unfortunate to see how much damage and how quick this charm is just deleting the Beaverell. But I mean, that's why A9 is so prevalent and so dominant for this meta. It looks like we're seeing a little bit of lag. I think they might have been trying to swap, but it was not registering. I'm not sure. Bella's able to get off this Ice Beam, and that Umbreon's going to be gone. So that's GG's. That is hands down, that's going to be GG's game 1. Let's go on to game 2. So we see that PL opts to open up with the Bibarel versus Bella's open with the Vaporeon. So this is an interesting matchup. I think a lot of people are not so familiar with the matchup of Bibarel versus Vaporeon. I'm very confident at this point with what we've seen so far that Bella's familiar with the matchup hands down. They do land the Hyper Fang, so Bella's obviously going to be opting to go for the last resort at this point, and we do not see a shield from either. And look at the simultaneous swap too. Skunk into Skunk from the double water gun open. Wow. For game 2, this is looking pretty good so far. The Skunk v Skunk, right? Bella looks like is opting to carry Crunch and Sludge Bomb, which I think is going to be a preferable and or optimal moveset against the Ferocious Cup meta. And this should be a Crunch, realistically. Yeah, they're going for another Crunch, and at this point it's really just a matter of who's going to shield, who's not going to shield. Interestingly, Bella opts to go for the Sludge Bomb, which does land, but it's not going to be very effective against the opposing Skunk, right? Poison versus poison, not what you want to see. Bella is going for the Crunch. Now, at this point, PL232 is under some pressure. Do I shield? Do I not shield? Do I let the Skunk go down? It looks like they let the Skunk go down. We saw that previously from Bella, which could put them in kind of an advantageous situation because they've got some water gun damage into KO the Skunk, and they have reached a charge move. They have gained access to this charge move, which it was a Surf. Ooh, Bella, did you see that? So they swapped out into their A9 as quick as possible, and it looks like PL232 did as well. This is intense, especially for a round 2 game 2. This is really close. We're seeing not only knowledge and matchup mastery demonstrated by both competitors here, but just the timing and the pure skill and execution. This is good. Looks like Bella might have been a little too stingy with the shields. GG's. Let's go to the next one. All right, so round 2, game 3 here between PL232 and Bella. We saw that PL stepped it up. They had that the switch glitch or the hesitation, I'm not sure, in game 1, but they demonstrated in game 2. They said, you know what, that's not going to happen again. I'm going to execute. I'm going to perform. You're going to have to step it up too. They opt to bring in the Skunk, which is kind of questionable, I guess. I mean, it's 2 versus 2 shields, but now Bella's going to bring in their own Skunk, and it's not so much going to be a matchup mastery, mirror knowledge situation at this point. Bella's kind of using Skunk Tank as I guess kind of an additional shield, right? A soft shield against the opposing threat, which it looks like I think Bella might have been baiting for this, right? Because they're building up energy and they're able to do the Crunch threat against the Bibarel. Bibarel is what gave Bella problems previously for game 2. I can't really confirm, Bella, if you can confirm this for me, if that's something you were trying to bait out of this situation and you did it successfully, please, let us know. That's just what I'm gathering from the gameplay here, but you're able to basically mitigate and kind of shut down the Bibarel threat at this point. They are able to get off another Surf, but obviously Vaporeon being kind of a tank, a secondary tank, you're not too worried about it. So you're going to save that shield. You have the double water strat still locked and loaded, good to go. They bring out the Skunk. We're going for that Aqua Tail as quick as possible. Are you going to shield? Or are you going to take the damage? It looks like they actually opt to shield. So they must be pretty close to that Crunch, which it looks like they are. They're going to get off the Crunch quick. And we do not see a shield from Bella at this point. So it looks like Bella's saving the shield for this Beeb that can come out. Charge up some energy, right? We're already over halfway to a Surf, and we see the A9 come out at the end. This could be, very close considering the charm damage coming out from A9. But the water gun damage combined with how fast Bibarel can get to Surf, it's GG's. As you can see, perfectly demonstrated. Bella knew exactly what they were doing for this game 3. Very GG's. Let's go to the next round. All right, now in round 3 here, Bella gets matched up against, we're just going to say CPA. CPA did not bring an Umbreon. It's possible they did not have a last resort Umbreon, so they opted to just have the Alolan Raticate, at least they attempt to have the Alolan Raticate fill the Umbreon role. Let's just get into round 3 game 1 here with Bella versus CPA. Looks like Bella kind of does lose this lead. One thing to note is the Skunk Tank being part dark typing is going to take heavy neutral damage pretty quick from what you can see. It's already at half health. The Charm's going to deal neutral damage very heavy and quick like a tank against the Skunk Tank. It's not, the most ideal situation since you're going to be taking the super effective from the Poison Jab, but also you can still put on the pressure by using a shield and reaching this Psyshock, which they opt to actually bring out the Alolan Sand Slash at this point, being part Steel, is going to resist the Charm. It took Bella a couple tries to bring out the Vaporeon. The switch was not registering, but it finally did, and we're going to get into that, that role that Vaporeon can get into with the Water Gun and the Aqua Tail. Vaporeon's just coming out. It's going to do its thing. They bring out the Alola Ninetales, which is not insanely ideal. Obviously, just being A9 in this meta, the charm damage is super duper threatening. At this point, we're seeing how CPA opts to use these specific Pokemon and their roles, right? They're not necessarily hard countering the A9. They're not necessarily hard countering or water to water matchup with the Vaporeon. They're using things a little differently, and I think it's because they have this Alolan Sandslash, which at this point, I think Bella's caught on to this too. What it's really saying is that they play differently because they might be relying on the Alolan Sandslash, or they're just trying to be, a little too cheeky with the Alolan Sandslash. Either way, at this point, the Ice Punch, even though it was shielded, it's not going to be that much of a threat against the Bibarel being part water. Bibarel is going to be resisting that, as you can see, and it's just Bibarel's going to do his thing. It's going to get in that water gun damage, and this is still GG's. Even after it lands this Ice Punch, all you need is one more water gun, and that's donezo. GG's game 1. Let's go to game 2. All right, now in round 3, game 2 here, again, we saw that, CPA likes to try and be a little cheeky, trying to do things a little different. I don't know if Bella's necessarily going to weigh on that for the rest of their matches here for round 3. I think Bella's smart. They play a little conservative, but more importantly, Bella's done the math. Bella has done the homework. Bella knows the matchups. Bella knows the numbers. I think Bella's going to be much more confident going into game 2 here up against CPA, especially considering their gameplay is not necessarily a little shaky, but because it's a little unpredictable. And Bella's going to be more familiar with the more important matchups. I think that's what's going to give Bella the advantage here for round 3. They're at a shield disadvantage at this point. Bella still has one. They're going to bring in the Skunk, right? They're swapping into Skunk, not necessarily again as a hard counter or as a safe switch, but kind of as a a soft shield. Is that what I said before? I think I said a soft shield. That's what they're using it as. The poison jab damage, also getting to crunch fairly quickly, going to be considerable. It's going to be able to mitigate that Vaporeon threat, and unfortunately we do see the A-Slash come out, the Alolan Sandslash with Powder Snow and Ice Punch. It's going to get to this super quick. I'd be surprised if we see a shield. Good, we don't. We were really close to that crunch. So close to getting that crunch. Unfortunately, we do not land that crunch. It doesn't register. The Powder Snow does the damage quick enough to let it go. And that was, we saw a dual swap. The swaps happened at the same time, which was kind of interesting at that point, especially considering Bella pretty much has the advantage. I think CPA was hoping to gain an advantage at that point, seeing as they have no shields left. They were kind of hoping and praying. I think they were trying to be, again, like we saw previously from CPA, they were trying to be a little unpredictable. Bella read it like a book, and this is pretty much going to be GG's. We're going to land the Surf here from the Bibarel, and that A-Slash, with the ice damage not being super effective at all. In fact, not very effective to Bibarel's part water typing. It's, you're going to have to get the Ice Punch to get rid of it, and then we got the double water. That's going to be, hands down, that's GG's. I think that was a clean sweep for the most part in terms of actual gameplay, matchup mastery, and also, just being, I don't want to say predictable, but being able to predict. GG's, Bella. Let's go to the next one. All right, and again, out of good sportsmanship, almost like always, so far at least, for Bella's tournament. They have to go for game 3, even though Bella's already won this round. So round 3 is in the bag at this point. Bella is going to be 3-0. Bringing out the Skunk Tank here, we're going to be going for that crunch against the Vaporeon. We're 2 versus 2 shields at this point. We actually, surprisingly, at least to me, it's surprising to see a shield at this point from the Vaporeon. Trying to preserve this Skunk. I think we're just trying to go for the poison jab damage and also to still, have this threat of using the crunch against the Vaporeon. And we do successfully get a shield, I guess. So that's GG's. I think that's what Bella was really going for, what they were hoping for. We see another shield on the Skunk because we're able to, that's what I thought, we're able to poison jab the Vaporeon down, and we're going to have a crunch and or sludge bomb here. Good to go for whatever comes out next, which is the A9. We do not see a shield. It lands. A9's done, completely KO'd, and even with the shield advantage at this point that CPA has, it's pretty much GG's, because we have this charm damage that's just a massive, quick, huge threat against the Bibarel. And if this is a Surf, it is a Hyper Fang, okay, which I think might have been preferable at that point in terms of damage. We're not able to reach a Psyshock, but that charm damage is just, it's so real. And even, again, at this point with the shield advantage, you have a full health Vaporeon versus a Bibarel at basically 20%. It's donezo. That's GG's. You don't even need to go for the Aqua Tail. Maybe, I guess to put on the shield pressure. There's a possibility at this point that they might reach another Surf. Do they? No, they don't. The water gun damage seals the deal. GG's. Let's go to the next round. All right, now round 4 here is up against an opponent who definitely has a reputation. You may know him, you may not, but it is Mr. Valor Up. And Mr. Valor Up has a team composition which shows as Umbreon, Alolan Ninetales, Skuntank, Nidoqueen, Bibarel, and then the Minun. All right, round 4, game 1 here. This is what I've been waiting for, Mr. Valor Up versus Bella. What do we see for opens? We see Umbreon versus Vaporeon. Now we know that Bella uses Umbreon very, very well. That's kind of what I've anticipated. Bella swaps out from the Vaporeon in that matchup. Bella likes to use Vaporeon last game, right? Preferably, we've seen Bella likes to close games using the Vaporeon. So this is not really advantageous at all. The Skunktank's not going to want to stay in on this matchup against the Nidoqueen. So I'd be very, very surprised if we see a shield from Bella, especially considering now that we already have in the double crunch threat against the Nidoqueen. We obviously, I think it's pretty obvious we should get a shield at that point from the Nidoqueen. If they want to utilize it. But yep, the Earth Power lands, kind of predictable at this point. But here you see Bella swapped out. They saved the Vaporeon for a situation like this, right? They noted that the opposing team does have Skuntank and also Nidoqueen as the double anti-charm, I guess. So Bella wants to hold on to this, wants to hold on to the Vaporeon. I think Bella utilizes the Vaporeon very, very well. At least as as far as what I've seen, this gameplay with the Vaporeon has been very, very, very masterful. Now, to get off the last resort against the Umbreon, they deal the heavy damage pretty quick, and we also get another highly skilled, quick, anticipated swap into the A9 versus the Umbreon. We caught that charge move being used by the Umbreon to the A9 with no shield, and this is, I don't want to say Bella necessarily predicted this. I think it just kind of worked out this way, where the Skunk's going to come out, and we're going to be going for that, that Psyshock. That gave Bella at this point a huge advantage for this game as far as pacing to close, but we'll see. This could be super duper close. They still have the Umbreon at this point. It's not necessarily ideal for Bella, especially again with just how spammy and tanky the Umbreon can be. That foul play, it charges up super quick with Snarl and getting same type attack bonus, dealing also neutral damage to the Vaporeon. It's considerable, right? For the water guns and the Aqua Tails, Bella saved it for a reason. GG's game 1. Let's go to game 2. Right now for round 4, game 2 here. I really don't think that Bella is shook. Bella's demonstrated, that Bella knows the matchups, the numbers, the data. Pretty confident. We actually see they open up with the Umbreon again, which is not, I don't want to say ideal, but it's going to be a little more of a neutral matchup. I mean, the Skuntank obviously, it's ultimately going to lose the matchup if you don't use any shields. But at least you can deal the neutral damage with the Sludge Bomb and the Poison Jab to kind of mitigate and to mellow down Umbreon and its functioning role in the Ferocious Cup meta. I think that was a good way to handle that threat. That was another, I guess another layer or level or a dimension that Bella has gone into as far as matchup mastery, right? Again, not necessarily a safe swap, but kind of as a soft shield is how we're seeing the Skuntank being utilized here. Now, they bring in their own Skunk. Bella actually brought the Nidoqueen at this point. They're going to take the Crunch, and we're going to see Earth. Oh, okay, so we're charging up, overcharging a little bit. Not necessarily charge farming against the Skunk, but we're making sure we get in, 2, maybe 3 extra Poison Jabs before we opt to go for another Earth Power. Anticipating this Crunch is coming up pretty quick, which we do see. Yes, we do see a shield. That's what I anticipated. And we're able to, we see it again, another couple extra Poison Jabs, just in case to overcharge the energy a little bit. Again, not necessarily farming against the Skunk, but you want to have that threat of potentially landing another Earth Power and or Earthquake to close the game. And we're battling a ghost now. We don't know what this Pokemon is. It's invisible. Okay, Nidoqueen. Nidoqueen used Earth Power. GG's, now we know what the Pokemon is. This obviously should force a shield at this point, seeing as they only have 1 shield left. Otherwise, the Psyshock, if it does not KO, it'll get very close, and then Charm will finish it off. They're just farming down with the Poison Jab. Now, it's interesting to note that they opted to go for an Earth Power against the A9. Kind of interesting indeed. I think they could have comfortably poisoned down with the Poison Jab. Not necessarily questionable. Does seem a little bit iffy though. Now, This is pretty much GG's. The skunk has nothing left, and the invisible Nidoqueen is going to take the cake. For now, round 4, game 3 here. I think the heat is definitely up in these two competitors for this past tournament, right? Mr. BellaBaoLam versus Bella. We've seen both times so far for game 1 and game 2. In round 4 here, Mr. BellaBaoLam opened up with Umbreon. And that's kind of, I don't want to say, it's put Bella in a rough spot, but for round 4, game 3 here, it can be, am I going to lead with Umbreon again? Am I not? And it looks like we do see another Umbreon lead, which it's kind of unfortunate. I probably personally, I would have led with A9 for game 3, anticipating they're just going to use the Umbreon again. But Bella wants to, kind of replay game 1 with that Vape Open, right? The Vaporeon Open. You want to reserve Vaporeon so you can hopefully catch the Nido, or you can catch something like a Charmer, right? You can catch the A9 potentially. Also kind of as a soft shield, I guess. A soft shield that's going to be more spammy than the Skunk Tank here. Now, the Skunk Tank obviously is going to be opting to go for the Crunch here against the Nidoqueen to do the neutral damage. The Nidoqueen does not shield, so we should see, well, we have double water, okay. The Vape, okay, we opt to bring the Vape in, which it's going to be very, very spammy, especially against the Nido. I don't know if we can necessarily comfortably water gun down at this point. I think there's a possibility that Nidoqueen can access another Earth Power. So as I anticipated, we're going to be going for another Aqua Tail here, which, good, we do not see a shield come out from that Nidoqueen, but at this point, you're matched up against an Umbreon that has 2 shields. Not ideal at all. We're going to see a shield be used to reserve this Vaporeon, and we see a Skunk come in. A 2-shield Skunk with Umbreon that might have just another foul play good to go at this point. This is not really advantageous at all. I think so far, at least, this is looking like the L that Bella took here for this tournament. I think, countering that double water, but also still bringing the Nidoqueen, and how Mr. BellaBaoLam has utilized Skunk Tank for these games, as well as utilizing Umbreon, that double dark, I guess, is what has worked really well for them. It's not necessarily a way to hard counter, a double water strategy. It's kind of hard to predict, especially because you have the Minun in your team composition. But I think that's what they did very well. That's what Mr. BellaBaoLam did, I guess, to bring victory here for him in round 4. GG's. Down goes the Bibarel. And that is it. Oof. Let's go to the next one. We are 5 rounds deep here, getting into round 5 for Bella's Ferocious Cup 7-1 performance. Now the next opponent here is Yes. To avoid confusion, I'm just gonna say Yes. As we go through it, I think it'd be kind of confusing if I say you, and I definitely don't think I can keep up with saying you yes all the time. So we're just gonna say Yes. Shout out to Yes. They are also definitely very active in the Pokemon Go PvP scene. And they brought kind of a spicy pick. It's something we have not seen yet come across Bella as far as matchups for this tournament. Copy and paste what the last team was, except instead of the Minun, they opt to actually bring the Linoon. Round 5, game 1, with Yes versus Bella. Bella versus Yes here. Wow. We see an A9 versus the Beeb Open. Now, what's considerable, obviously, between Beeb having access to Surf, but Water Gun being super spammy, is the fact that the shield play, in this matchup, this is something we already know from the beginning of this video that Bella's going to be familiar with. You're going to be able to gain this energy advantage, even though you're going to have to pretty much invest in shields. It can kind of put you in an advantageous situation if you are quick with your swapping, right? Which obviously is going to require a lot of practice and a lot of skill, but that's something that I think Bella is comfortable with, something they're confident in is their own skill and their own ability to execute in situations like that. And they pretty much mirror what the Open was at this point. They've already done a little bit of damage to the opposing A9 with their own A9, and they swap in pretty quickly to their own Beep here to deal not necessarily a lot of damage, but it definitely kind of mitigates and or threatens actually the opposing A9, and they show what else they have. They have the Nidoqueen, so we're going to bring out the Umbreon at this point, right? We're going to bring out the Spam Tank of the Ferocious Cup meta, and we are going to deal with the Nidoqueen. Now, one thing obviously to note about Nidoqueen is even if, it doesn't necessarily have to opt for Earth Power, right? It can go for this Earthquake, which can be considerable. I think that can give it a lot of matchups that it would not have otherwise. And it unfortunately looks like, yeah, that's GG's game 1. The Nidoqueen threat did what it was meant to do. And it pretty much swept game 1. Yes, GG's. Let's go to the next round. Round 5, game 2 here with Yes versus Bella. The pressure is definitely on based on how game 1 went and how Yes basically dominated and closed with that Needle Queen, landing the Earthquake and then poison jabbing and doing its thing, right? They opted to open up with the Linoon, and it was I don't want to say it was necessarily questionable. The thing about Linoon for the Ferocious Cup meta is that it has Shadow Claw, right, which is pretty spammy. It can deal good damage in certain matchups, but the major dark threats, right, with Umbreon and Skunk Tank that I think are going to be very, very common, already are very, very common in the Ferocious Cup meta, that's not something the Linoon wants to be faced up against. So definitely not ideal for Yes in this situation for game 2 here in round 5. Now we're going for this, the Skunk Tank going to be going for the Crunch. And look at that, the Shadow Claw damage is virtually non-existent versus the Skunk Tank. And I'm actually kind of shocked here. We actually do see a shield to reserve the Skunk Tank, but realistically we are close enough. I guess it's justifiable to get to that Crunch, and then we should see a swap. No, I think they thought about it for a second. They were thinking about the swap, but they accessed the charge move already. It's already registered. So down goes the Skunk Tank, but the Linoon has used its energy. So the Poison Jab damage is going to bring it down. And then, yeah, this is pretty much GG's. It's going to be going for the Earthquake, and we see a Needle Queen close and sweep here for game 2. Bella's like, okay, you want to play the Needle Queen game? Let's do it. GG's. Round 5, game 3. This is going to be for the cake. Obviously, at this point, we already know Bella's victorious, but it's still going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, right? Because they essentially went back and forth between game 1 and game 2. And I think Bella, I don't want to say necessarily flexed, but kind of showed, that matchup mastery and also how to utilize the different Pokemon, how to close with it, how to open with it, etc. So yes, swaps out into the A9 versus the Umbreon. It looks like, I believe that just didn't register. I don't know if that was the switch glitch or if Bella was just a little too slow to swap out from the A9. But, it's okay at this point because you have an Anchor. You can swap in with the Anti-Charmer. I guess a very, very common Anti-Charmer for the Ferocious Cup meta. Bring in the Needle Queen. Can basically just poison jab down all the way. You can essentially farm the A9 at this point, and you still have a shield left over, and you've got a ton of energy built up against 2 Pokemon that have no shields. We see the Beeple come out, the Beeperel, and this should be I would have anticipated an Earthquake, but it looks like they actually opted for an Earth Power, which I think in that situation might have been the better choice because of the water gun damage and also you needing to get access to another Earth Power. I think that was a good call. The opposing Needle Queen comes out, but you have this Umbreon that you, I guess, kind of swap into as a cushion. I guess, a third or additional shield against the Needle Queen threat. And it looks like instead of opting to Poison Jab down and take a little bit of damage from the Umbreon, they just use their energy right away, which I think the deal was kind of already sealed at this point for round 5, but that definitely sealed the deal with them using their energy. And you still have a shield, so that Earthquake, it's not even considerable. This is GG's. At this point, Bella is, 4-1, right? Round 1, 2, and 3 were W's, took a L in round 4, and round 5 is a W. All right, so for round 6 here, 6 rounds deep, we are being matched up, or I guess Bella is being matched up for round 6 against the infamous, the one, the only, Call Me Jake. And for Jake's team, very, very interesting. Jake does not have an Umbreon. He did not bring an Umbreon. I don't know if that's because he just doesn't want to use Umbreon for the Ferocious Cup meta, or if he does not have one with Last Resort. These should be some intense, heated, spicy, and dicey battles here. I'm very much looking forward to even just watching these, right? So again, round 6, Bella versus Call Me Jake. We see Bella opens up with the Skunk. Jake loses the lead. Technically, kind of loses the lead with the A9. But, as we saw previously, I believe it was in round 3 or round 4, this matchup can kind of go either way. It depends on how the opposing A9 is going to play and also whether or not you are going to use a shield, which it looks like we do use a shield in this matchup, which I don't want to say is questionable. I think it was done deliberately by Bella at this point in the tournament to mitigate the A9 threat, considering that Call Me Jake does not have an Umbreon in their team composition, right? Bella knows that at this point, so you can play a little differently. It gives Bella a little more breathing room and a little more flexibility with, I guess, taking a little bit of risk in your gameplay against Call Me Jake. Now, the Grass Knot lands successfully against the Beeperel here, which is not obviously ideal. I think one thing that Bella knows at this point is the Grass Knot is not going to OHKO, and also the Shadow Claw is extremely resisted by BellaBaoLam with his part normal typing, so that's not even, not even a threat. I think Bella played that very well, played that very masterfully, actually. That was a huge demonstration of skill and matchup mastery, right? You got to have that PvP head knowledge. Do your homework like Bella has done here. Get in a lot of practice, right? Not very advantageous for Bella at this point. They have the Beeb out there still. You swap into the Skunk, I guess, I think you were trying to catch a Surf there, or potentially Hyperfang and have Jake use their energy. But Jake also has that PvP head knowledge. You have no shields at this point. I'm just going to keep using Water Gun. And yeah, this is pretty much GG's. I consider game 1 to essentially be over at this point. I think Jake hands down is taking the W here for game 1. Jake, very, very GG's, very, very well played. Oof. And here we go for game 2. We see Jake opens up with the BellaBaoLam, and we open up with the Skunk. Kind of neutral, Skunk can be kind of a soft counter, soft switch, soft shield, whatever you want to call it. Not necessarily, a soft switch or a safe switch, but it kind of has a soft role to play in the meta. It kind of fills those empty spots, and it kind of avoids the rock, paper, scissors, I guess, kind of gameplay that we see. I think that's the utilization of Skunk Tank for this meta. Now, we take the victory over the first Pokemon here. Unfortunately, though, we do not have any kind of shield advantage. We're 1 versus 2 shields, and they have the A9. Fortunately, we do have this Skunk good to go with the Sludge Bomb, and we can deal a little bit of extra damage. At least it's super effective against the A9. We opt to go for a Crunch, which is not going to be very effective versus the A9, and Jake has predicted that successfully, probably counting fast moves, anticipating the amount of energy required, and does not use a shield. Pretty smart. But we do have the Water Gun damage coming out here from the BellaBaoLam into the A9, which is not going to be ideal for A9. So just like I would have anticipated and like I would have read, they swap out into Vaporeon. So we're going to be going for the Hyperfang, and it lands successfully, which definitely at this point, that was the turning point, was landing that Hyperfang, I guess, kind of shield baiting, getting that successful shield bait to connect against the Vaporeon. That's definitely where this has turned, because we got the tank in the back, right? We have the Umbreon here, and this Umbreon is going to do work. I think we're going to see this Umbreon close. I'd be very surprised if we didn't, even against the A9 threat here, because we still have a little bit of a spammability in the back pocket in case the A9 goes down too quickly. The last resort does not land. Obviously, Jake opts to use the shield, but the Water Gun. There you go. GG's game 2. Let's go to game 3. Right now, going into game 3 here, I think in a lot of situations, this is about as heated as it can get, at least from my perspective, to see someone who's demonstrated so much skill and mastery like Bella against somebody who I know is so masterful and so skilled in Pokemon Go PvP like Jake. So these are intense here. We see the Hyperfang land, another Hyperfang lands, so we're going Hyperfang, swap into the Skunk here, and they swap into Lanoon. Jake's opting to bring in the Lanoon. Even though the Shadow Claw is not ideal at all against the Skunk Tank in terms of damage output, you got to consider its energy gain and the charge moves that it can carry, right? It can carry Dig, which we might see Dig here, which would be super effective to the Skunk. We do not see a Dig, so I think at this point that was a successful shield bait from Call Me Jake. But Skunk Tank also has, a little bit of spammability, and also Poison Jab is just going to be chunking down, bit by bit by bit against the Lanoon in this matchup. Do we see a shield? Is it a Dig now? There's the Dig. Okay, so we see the Dig. As you can see, super effective. Basically going to OHKO the Skunk Tank. It's Gonzo. Then we see the Beeb come out, which I think we're just going for at this point, not necessarily to waste the investment of having the low health, but to just do that Water Gun damage, trying to snipe in that extra fast damage as quick as you can, and try and force a switch, I guess, or to force some kind of play or some kind of response from Jake, right? We're putting on the pressure as much as we can. This Lanoon, we got a shield, even if it is a Dig. It's pretty much going to be GG's because we can shield whatever it is. Poison Jab down, then we got the Earth Power and or even the Earthquake. Good to go at this point, which there's a Charmer left versus an anti-Charmer with 2 fully charged secondary charge moves. It's GG's. There's not much Jake can do at this point. Very well played, Bella. Also very well played, Jake. That was an intense round. GG's. Let's go to the next one. Getting into round 7, 7 rounds deep. We see yet another legendary opponent with a huge, massive reputation in the Pokemon Go PvP scene. For round 7 here, Bella's going up against the only Arrow. Arrow has a massive reputation for not only sweeping tournaments, but by doing so with interesting team compositions. As we see, the Arrow has kind of, a core standard team for the most part between the A9, Nidoqueen, Umbreon, and Vaporeon. The two picks that stand out are the Lairon and then the Kanto Raichu. So this definitely should be some interesting gameplay between these two team compositions. Round 7, game 1 with two PvP giants. Give me these battles. We see a Vaporeon versus Umbreon lead. If we follow the previous patterns, okay, we swap out from the Vaporeon. We want to reserve Vaporeon's ability to be, spammable and to be a valid threat against a lot of the meta with the Water Gun, Aqua Tail, and Last Resort moveset. And we're going to kind of mitigate, I guess, the Umbreon threat with the Skunk Tank as the neutral coverage, I guess. Kind of a neutral anti-tank for Skunk Tank, I guess, is what he could be maybe for this meta. I don't know. Let me know if you agree with that or not. But we see the Sludge Bomb come out from the Skunk Tank. It lands, interestingly, so we're able to get to another Sludge Bomb. This could be huge if it lands. I think we would be surprised. Okay, we do see a shield. I was going to say I'd be very, very surprised if I do not see a shield come out from an Arrow at this point to reserve the Umbreon, especially considering how many snarls it's got in. It could potentially, get that back-to-back foul play, and that's kind of an anchor or a position Arrow needs to retain for this battle to have advantage, and that was close. We do see another foul play here. I'd be surprised to see a shield. Okay, we do not see a shield with the Vaporeon, but we have this Water Gun threat, and they kind of come out. Okay, so they come out with the Vaporeon. I think they're just trying to do that kind of soft counter or soft shield with the Vaporeon versus Vaporeon Mirror, which has been, pretty successful in terms of, a strategy, or at least a gameplay strategy that we have seen so far from Bella here for this tournament. So they land the Wild Charge, but given the team composition, I think Bella kind of saw this coming. I think it was predicted that Arrow would try to utilize the Kanto Raichu, but it's going to be entirely walled by the Nidoqueen. This is definitely a hard counter. Not the hardest of counters that we've seen in Pokemon Go PvP history, but definitely a hard counter. Now, even if, with it being 1v1 shield at this point, you have massive shield pressure with this Nidoqueen with all this built up energy going for the Earth Power. We do see a stat debuff there, right? So the defense has fallen. These poison jabs are going to deal damage much quicker to the Vaporeon. And we get off, that's GG's. We get off another Earth Power because we're able to farm down and basically just farm up all day on the Kanto Raichu. Very GG's. Let's go to the next game. Round 2 with these two masters of PvP. This is the place to be. We see the Skunk versus the Umbreon Open. It's going to be kind of interesting to see how Arrow's going to play against the Skunk Tank, at least as far as an open for this next round, considering how the previous round went with, those clutch Sludge Bombs and the amount of pressure that Bella was able to put on with this Skunk Tank against the Umbreon. This really just comes down to matchup mastery and who's going to shield, who's not going to shield. And Bella, knows at this point, I definitely should be able to reach another Sludge Bomb. We see a little bit of lag there, but that's okay. Bella's comfortable enough to get to this other Sludge Bomb to deal this valid threat still against the Umbreon with the Sludge Bomb damage. And you see the Poison Jab just chipping and chipping and chipping away against the Umbreon. Even with Umbreon being a spammy massive tank, Skunk Tank kind of mitigates that threat, right? So now we see Umbreon versus Umbreon. They went for a foul play, which I think they were possibly trying to shield bait at that point. Definitely not going to shield in that scenario with a full health Umbreon coming in against another Umbreon that's essentially Gonzo at this point. If anything, I think we might just see some farming down with Snarl. We opt to go for a foul play. Okay, so at this point, in the battle, it's amount of pressure that's being applied. Are you going to use another shield or are you not? And it looks like Arrow does not cave in. Arrow does not forego his foundation that he has left with his one shield. He does have this Lairon, which can be a considerable threat with its moveset, right? Having Metal Claw, and I would anticipate at least to see Body Slam as well as Rock Slide, but you never know. We haven't seen it at this point. So Arrow responds fairly quickly. Wanted to get in a couple more Metal Claws previously with that Lairon, and they let the Earth Power land, which I don't think was questionable. It could have been the right play at the time because you're able to deal the quick Water Gun damage, being super effective to Nidoqueen with this part ground typing, but it's just not going to be enough. That Poison Jab dealing neutral to the water, that's pretty much going to be GG's. The Lairon's basically going to have to use the shield at this point to be able to do any kind of threat or to deal any kind of damage against the Nidoqueen or to stand a chance for the rest of this battle. And we do see no shield on the Nidoqueen. It's Gonzo, but we do have the Umbreon left with one shield, and being the spam master that Umbreon is, it's pretty much GG's at this point. I don't think there's anything Arrow can do with the Lairon left to really bring victory. You know, double charm could have played out a lot differently, could have played in Arrow's favor, but you know, it is what it is. That's very, very GG's. This game, these rounds have been masterfully played so far. Insanely good, insanely skilled battles. GG's. All right, the final game here with Arrow versus Bella. This is the sauce of PvP. Indeed, this is the place to be. We see the Vaporeon versus A9 open. Vaporeon gets out of there as quick as possible. You bring in the Skunk. They also respond. Arrow responds very quickly by bringing in, you know, essentially the hard counter to the Skunk, right, would be the Nidoqueen. Because your poison jabs are going to be essentially doing nothing, and I'm going to have the Earth Power and or Earthquake threat for that shield pressure, right? And we see the shield come up from the Earth Power, and even if we got a defense debuff at that point, this matchup's kind of interesting between these two. But I think that's, you know, another role that Nidoqueen has to play in the meta, aside from countering picks like Lairon or even Alolan Ninetales, is having clutch situations like this where you can be a valid threat also against, you know, the Skunk Tank. I don't want to say it's necessarily the ninja of the Ferocious Cup meta. I have my personal ninjas of previous metas, but that is how, you know, Arrow has been utilizing it. He's very familiar with the matchups against the team composition we have from Bella here with the double water and double anti-charmer. We see the water gun, Aqua Tail, spam combos come out. We've seen some huge plays previously from Bella with Vaporeon, so this is going to be pretty intense. I don't think we would see any shields come out for Bella to protect the Vaporeon at this point, considering that Arrow has no shields left and we're able to successfully land a last resort. Okay, we don't see a shield to get off a foul play. Do we see a swap? We do. A simultaneous swap again. Arrow goes into the A9. Bella brings out the Bibarel. So Bella utilized for this final round against Arrow, for this final battle against Arrow, utilized the double water strategy, which came in very, very clutch. I think I mentioned it earlier. That's something Arrow would have to watch out for, considering their team composition, right? You got the Nidoqueen, you have the Lairon, even though you have the Kanto Raichu, it's going to be super duper squishy. So it's really a matter of, are you going to use the Raichu and invest in shields, or are you not? And Arrow played kind of interesting, I think, considering Bella's team composition and what the matchups were. This is masterful gameplay from both competitors. Hands down a victory for Bella here, though, so very GG's. Let's go to the final. All right, so the final of the final, the cherry on top for this tournament. We have Bella versus Phil Hugs. And Phil Hugs' team composition, again, you know, is very standard in terms of core meta. The main thing I note is that they opt to bring Minun as the wild card for electric coverage. But enough chit-chat. Let's get into this tap-tap. Let's see the battles. We've seen this time and time again. You swap out as quick as possible from the Vaporeon against the Umbreon open, going in for the Skunk Tank to go for that the Sludge Bomb and the Poison Jab pressure and damage against the Umbreon. And I think this is where Bella catches a lot of people, is they don't realize the matchup and the amount of damage that can come out from the Skunk Tank to the Umbreon. I think that has brought Bella a lot of success so far in this tournament. But I think Phil's kind of aware of it. They've probably practiced a lot. They've studied a lot. They know their numbers as well. So they swap into their own Skunk Tank. Pretty interesting to see that as a response. I mean, not so surprising, you know, especially in round 8, considering how this tournament has gone so far for Bella. As you progress throughout a tournament and as you gain victories, your opponents obviously will become tougher and tougher and more experienced and higher ranked. So that's why we're seeing this level of play from the opposition. And we saw a little bit of lag. Not such a huge deal at this point. I think it's mutual lag. It's going to be on both sides. Bella's able to poison jab down the opposing Skunk Tank. We didn't see any poison jabs coming from the Skunk Tank though, so maybe this could end up turning into a replay. I don't think so though, but let's see. So we get off the Sludge Bomb, which is going to be shielded by the Umbreon. You're going to swap into the A9, which definitely hands down at this point in the battle. You probably already know. I don't even need to say it. The advantage is definitely lying with Bella at this point, because they went for a charge move for the last resort, rather than swapping out as quick as they could into this Nidoqueen here. And the Side Shock, surprisingly, lands successfully and essentially OHKOs the Nidoqueen. Earth Power is going to be GG's, but you've used your energy at that point, so the Nidoqueen's not really much of a threat, especially considering Bella here beautifully still has the Umbreon reserved. You always save that. I'm sorry, the Vaporeon. The Vaporeon reserved. You always save that Vaporeon threat. It's such a spammable Pokemon in this meta, this Ferocious Cup meta, with Water Gun and Aqua Tail, but also having access to the Legacy Charge move Last Resort. You use it very, very well. It's been very impressive, and you're essentially closing with it for every game. I think Vaporeon, correct me if I'm wrong, might have been the MVP throughout all these games and all these matches. You know, it could be close with Skunk Tank as well, seeing as how you utilize Skunk Tank is essentially a safety net. Very well played. GG's. In game 2 of the final round for Bella's Ferocious Mega Cup with King, we see a Skunk Tank open versus an Umbreon. So this is, as we've seen before, it feels kind of repetitive at this point, but we know that Bella knows that this kind of matchup is playable. You don't need to use a shield, just do the pressure with the Sludge Bomb threat and get in the Poison Jab damage. You want to be able to mitigate and eliminate that Umbreon threat. Essentially, to make their Umbreon almost be kind of a waste, a little bit of a waste, seeing as you opened with it. I'm still going to reserve the other picks and the other Pokemon that I have, and I will just get rid of your tank, and I'm not going to use any shields. I'm going to reserve the resources that I have saved, and that is how Bella has gained advantage. This kind of matchup mastery and this specific PvP knowledge about the Umbreon versus Skunk Tank, I think a lot of people are aware of the matchup. I don't necessarily know that a lot of people are necessarily as skilled at Bella at playing the matchup. Bella brings in the A9, which does the quick, essentially 2 HKO against the Umbreon. We see the Skunk come in at this point, which is kind of interesting considering they do not have any kind of shield advantage. Based on that move, I anticipate they might have either their okay, it is the Vaporeon. They have the Vaporeon in the back. Now we see a Vaporeon versus Vaporeon mirror matchup. Again, this is not the most entertaining or the most thrilling kind of mirror matchup, but it definitely is the kind of a mirror matchup you want to be familiar with for the Ferocious Cup meta, because things like this play out in a fashion where if you don't use a shield, for example, and you take a hit like this, I mean, you know, it's general PvP knowledge. You got to be able to shield bait successfully in these kind of mirror matchups, or you're basically just going to lose. And, you know, there's no way around it. If you get the successful shield bait in a mirror matchup like this, it's pretty much GG's. Maybe not. You know, we were really close to getting to that Aqua Tail, but we didn't, because the Last Resort left us with, what, 1 HP left on the Water Gun OHKOs. But then this is it. I mean, this is GG's. We get the Ice Beam versus the Skunk, and it's done. Well played. All right, in the final of the final of the final here, game 3 for the final round with Phil Hugs versus Bella. We see a Vaporeon open from Phil, and Bella opens up with the Skunk, which can deal, you know, the Skunk's doing his thing again, being that natural kind of filler in the Ferocious Cup meta for threats like this. I think Bella uses Skunk very well as an open as well. You know, it can deal with a lot of different matchups, and it can not necessarily give Bella the advantage. I guess, you know, kind of a sub advantage or an external advantage it might give Bella, and why Bella is so good at using Skunk Tank is it leaves the rest of your team composition in the air, right? It leaves the opponent guessing as to what other Pokemon you have brought, because you're just going to be spamming as much as you can. You're not necessarily going to use shields unless you really have to, unless you've seen their team composition, and Bella plays it almost perfectly. Very, very, very masterfully. It's like you play it like a violin. It's beautiful. What do we see coming next? Should be the A9, realistically. We don't see a shield. That makes sense at this point, even if it is a Last Resort. It's not going to do that much damage to the Alolan Ninetales. And we see a quick swap. That response time was a key. That was masterful. That was very impressive of getting out of the Skunk Tank matchup. You're going to be coming in with the Water Gun Aqua Tail Spam Master Vaporeon for the Ferocious Cup meta. And it's going to deal with the Skunk Tank. Knowing these specific matchups, we've seen these very common, right? If they have a Skunk Tank, you're going to come in with the Umbreon. If they swap into an Anti-Charmer, get out of there as quick as possible. And that is all based around not just rock, paper, scissors, but what you open with based on their team composition. Played very well, especially, you know, considering when you open with Skunk, it's pretty unlikely for the most part they're going to open up with an Anti-Charmer, considering double water strat is so common. Bella knows it all for this Ferocious Cup. Very, very well played, very GG's. Even though we're going to anticipatedly, or I guess it looks like we're going to take an L here for this final, but I mean, it's already done. Nope, we don't. GG's. It was a sweep. Wow. So after all those rounds, we saw that Bella lived up to the name with their strategy of using Alolan Ninetales, Skunk Tank, and Vaporeon to the best of their ability within the Ferocious Cup meta, and using the flexibility that both Vaporeon and Skunk Tank can provide in one team composition really demonstrates how valuable the matchup mastery is, but also the masterful gameplay and the high octane plays we saw, not only with switch timing when swapping out from either losing a lead or getting out of there with Alolan Ninetales as quick as possible, or even switching into Alolan Ninetales as quick as possible. Things like that, the skill with the timing is that next level gameplay, but also it takes a lot of practice. So this is also another demonstration after all 8 rounds of how important a lot of practice can be for these metas. But let me know what you think about the gameplay and the strategy below. If you have any different thoughts, or if you had any different observations, or even if you notice things differently, put it down in the comments below. Remember to like the video as well. It does help a lot. Subscribe if you feel the Ghost Stadium vibe, and power up punch the notification bell for all the Ghost Stadium PvP content. That is it for this shoutcasting video. We'll see you in the next video. Have a good freaking day.